the concept of oneness being overwhelming to the degree that it becomes debilitating in your daily waking life.
Yeah, I was just glossing over this subject the other day with a friend of mine, and he mentioned something like, sometimes I just feel like I'm the only thing that really exists. And I was like, yeah, I know what you mean, right? Because I think we all kind of play with that idea on various levels. But it hit me hard not too long ago in one of my meditations. And I found a little bit of beauty in it, which I shared with him. And I was like, well, on some level, if you are the one, if you do exist as the one, the all that is, well, that's kind of cool because, you get to be the one and have that experience as that. But then you also have your friends and your family as aspects of your consciousness. And I tried to share it with them from that perspective.
So for me, for the longest time after I had that realization of oneness, it was just such a daunting task to integrate that and to carry that forth in everyday conversations and like casual interactions. It was so heavy. It felt so heavy on my heart. Like the notion of existence being suffering, it's inherently suffering is a part of the condition that we find ourselves in. And so like knowing, if we're all one, and if I've been through the stuff I've been through, I know other people have been through stuff too. And it's like looking someone in the eyes and just feeling your heart sink out of like compassion and like I said, empathy turning into paralysis. Until I got to a better place personally, then I was able to see the positive side of that, of like all the potential joy of the human condition and of existence and awareness and all that. Now I can look at it with a little bit of levity, and now I can like interact with someone and show up as my best, most expansive, most open self, and be that beam of light. But like I said, for the longest time, it was really tough for me. Did you have to go through that stage also at any point in time?
I did have a run in with that issue of feeling like I'm carrying the world on my shoulders. And it's like, and life's just heavy and gets muddy. And this for me I was like 24, and I kind of had like what I would call a kind of LSD overdose, just in the sense that I took more than I thought that I was taking. Just a bad measure. And but yeah, so for like, I think this was 3 or so months, I found myself in a spot where that yeah, I interpret it as being kind of negative. And so I had a lot of negative reflections in my life in real time, and I learned a lot about it as I integrated it over the next few years of my life. But enough, what helped me out of that was that I had to like stop doing all of everything. I had to stop drinking, stop smoking weed, because that only like made me feel worse during this period. And eventually I had a few experiences with DMT that kind of helped me get my grip on reality eventually, and I came out of it. And then over the next few years, I've integrated that 3 month stretch where the really feeling that weighed me down and was a negative thing. But now I look back on it as something that I really highly value. I'm really glad that I had that experience, even though it felt so bad for so long. And because it was so slow and heavy and dense, one day in this state felt like fucking weeks. Like time moved slowly. And I'll never forget any of this stuff. It's burned into my core, which makes me know like it was a very important experience to me. And but I don't remember it with fear or hate anymore. I really like am thankful for it, and so I see like why I kind of went through that or chose to go through it maybe on some level. But yeah, I did have that, and those 3 months felt like fucking closer to 5 or more years. And my family was worried about me because I was kind of different. I spoke differently, and I spoke about death differently. And I was in and out of kind of like playing with the idea of dying as a suicide, but I never actually wanted to hurt myself. So when I would speak about death from this place of no fear, and like I would tell people like I look forward to death, really, they were worried about me, and I never wanted to hurt myself. It never got to that point, but I could see for somebody who's in pain how they would very much maybe choose that. And that was the time where I could really see like why people would go that route, even though it's not something I necessarily identify with, really.
So as sort of a side tangent, having that like eagerness or like kind of like um embrace of death, I think like it's often misinterpreted as something dark or depressing by our culture, because our culture like tries to avoid any notion that we're you know anything but immortal. And so like whenever you like, it is exciting. I mean, is it not? It's going to be like you're going to have like you're gonna have the time of your life. Like literally, it's going to be like it's gonna be like it's gonna be ineffable. That's why I can't find words for it. But there is the paradox of like there's people that are suffering and they feel like they can't sustain this level of like deep sadness or whatever you want to say, and they want to call it quits. I mean, you and I know, and people can say that we think we know this, but we know it because we know it. There ain't no way out to this. I mean, we're here. The switch is turned on, so you got to go through it and you got to get through it. But when you're going through it, that's easier said than done. The next topic I have is how everything is like, let's say the library of wisdom is within the collective consciousness, so unlearning is really all you ever have to do. You just have to tap into the flow, and you don't really need to be well read. You don't really need to be highly educated. You just need to unlearn. And how important is unlearning, and how think about like 99.999% of people in our culture don't even know unlearning is a thing, or to value it at all, or that there could be any worth to it.
You know what blows my mind is that I've realized, like, just as a general generation, people our age, we understand that concept more than our parents' generation does. And this thing has been reinforced every time I hang out with my parents, and they say things that just don't make sense, are weird little takes, and I have to remind them, like, wait, that did you realize what you just said? That doesn't make any sense. Let's break that down. And they're like, oh, wait, you're right. And I'm like, yeah, these are the stupid ideas that were instilled by you, that were parts of propaganda of you, where you grew up, in the society you grew up in.
Okay, keep going, but I want to say I want to really like highlight that, like something I try to, if I have the what's the word, the vastness to think of it at the time, like if it's my parents, if it's whoever, I'm like, whose idea is that? Is that something you believe, or is something that you taught that you should believe? Go on.
No, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That question right there is the question, my bad. It's the question that I'm always asking them in different words, because now I realize I have to, if I do it with finesse and I sneak it up on them, they easily realize that the shit they just said is bullshit. It doesn't make any sense. But so this happens right now every time I hang out with my mom, my dad, and sometimes like my brothers, my sisters, just not even them only, but my friends as well. And so I'm realizing like I can really be finesse with it and just kind of point that stuff out and be like, oh, that's kind of illogical, don't you think? And get them to look into the concept, or is this really something you believe? Is this something that you think is true? Like, and I realized like a lot of us are holding things as we like have these weird little facts in our heads that actually aren't even facts. They're just stupid little beliefs that we picked up along the way. And so it's fun now that we know this, that we can just unlearn and drop all those things easily. and like we still do that all the time, even though this is a process like for you and me that has probably started some time ago. We still can identify those things that may come and go in our thought process and be like, oh no, that's like, that doesn't even make sense. So, and I feel like that's super freeing. It's helped me get the chatter out of my head more lately as an adult, because those problems, those like belief, those societal structures and things you should do because of this and that, those did used to play more in my mind when I was younger, and it fucking weighed me down. It was super uncomfortable. So I'm glad I don't have to deal with that.
I think a huge part of it, the step in between before you get to those like little revelations and epiphanies about your thinking is like most people aren't taught to think about their thinking, like think about your thoughts, like metacognition. Like I think without a meditative practice or mindfulness practice, you don't reach that stage of like, are these my thoughts? Am I my thoughts? All those cliche Eastern things, but like, how valuable is that? Like, whose thoughts are these, and like, where are they coming from? And do I need to necessarily identify with them? Are they me? Do they even resonate with me, or is it just like residual echoes of tradition and culture?
That tool is actually like an invaluable tool, and it's like it's something that I feel like a lot of us run into from the meditative practice. It's that, if I don't know, maybe that concept arises inherently from meditation, because you have to slow down and kind of see things from this other perspective, this expanded perspective. But so I think that what's weird to me is that we don't teach that in school to kids. Like, I think that would be an invaluable tool to teach to kids at a young age in elementary school, in meditation, to sit back and realize like there's just a thought loop that comes and goes. This thing, it exists, but you don't have to be it. It doesn't have to run you, and you can play with it and even make it work better over time by kind of developing a relationship with it, which is something that I've been doing a lot lately. And it's just been incredible because I'm still learning about that all these years later, and learning like, oh, not only does that exist, but there's a way to play with the input and the output stream, and not necessarily control it, but kind of have interaction with it on an energetic level where you can see it kind of shift in different ways. It's really interesting.
You may have lost me there towards the end. When you say you can like play with it energetically and let it like shift in different ways, are you saying with like your subconscious, like those thought forms that arise, like instead of attaching your identity to them, like kind of watch how they like are temporary and how they dissipate on their own, how something new comes in all the time? Or is there more to it that I missed?
Yeah, so what you just said, I would say, is just given. Like, that's just part of it. That's just kind of how part of it operates. But what I'm adding to the mix is that you can play with the stream of consciousness, that one that shows itself as thoughts and a voice in your head, if you will. You can play with it by interacting it, engaging it via conversation with your intention to how you like to talk to the stream, right? Because it's there to work for you and with you, really. And it ends up working against you when you buy into other people's beliefs. That's what we're realizing. Like, it ends up not working with you when you're holding things that your parents taught you but doesn't make sense for you, that doesn't hold true for you, or things that society told you but they don't make sense for you. And that's when you have the voice in your head telling you shit that makes you feel bad. So yeah, it's just, I'm saying that if you play with it with intent, there's a whole nother level of unlocking its malleability.
Okay, so a few things you said towards the end. Before you reach that skill level of malleability with setting intent and all that, there is just an inherent mental anguish that comes with like holding on to the societal baggage of other people's ideas that aren't necessarily for you or don't serve you, is like, how could that not create a cognitive dissonance and an imposter syndrome? You're like, again, like, I'm being redundant, but like, whose ideas are these? Like, am I even my own fucking person at the end of the day? Like, how free am I? Am I literally like, is there any free will, or is this all determined based on like what has the, like we talked, the layers that have been put onto me? Like, I'm wearing all these fucking coats and it's summer out. This don't make no goddamn sense.
Yeah, and they stack up quick. The things that aren't yours, they get heavy fast because they're not yours and you don't have any business carrying them. And that's, I think that in years time we'll see, this is from my looking into physics recently. I think that we'll see though in medicine that holding on to these things is literally creating a lot of diseases. A ton of conditions are, and stress induces disease. We know this, but I think we're going to see more clearly how there's a mental connection with holding on to belief patterns that aren't yours and creates a disharmonious resonance in some part of us that manifests in various diseases. I think it's going to be clear to see in no time. But yeah, it stacks up fast, and it's amazing to me that so many people live so long. I know people in their 60s and 70s that are still dealing with the results of holding on to things that weren't theirs, and it's really, that's been a huge challenge for them in their life. And it's clear for me to see, even though they might not necessarily agree with me, and I understand that's my opinion, but yeah, for me, I see it everywhere.
Well, to give you the benefit of the doubt, maybe they don't agree with you because they can't see outside of their own thinking and you're looking at it from the outside in. Something you mentioned, and this will get like real. I feel like for me, this is going to get really elusive and really esoteric real quick, but let's talk about how important harmony is. What does that mean to you? And you can talk about it down the avenue of like music or nature or what have you, but like the fact that harmony is a thing and the fact that it is a good, necessary thing, like, what does that make you think of? Because you said disharmonious and that popped up.
Yeah, when I speak about harmony, I really mean it kind of as a mechanism, as a force that aligns like with like, and the harmony acts to unify. It acts in a positive way. Basically, I would describe it as just like a positive force in helping bring cohesion to the things that have the same vibration. So yeah, that's how I would describe it from a vibration standpoint. Basically, where the harmony is the resonance, where things are aligned with each other. And so like we see that in nature as like a stream going down a mountain in a beautiful way with its curves, and it just all makes so much sense. And it's actually, and it looks physically beautiful, but it also makes sense from a nature standpoint in terms of servicing the land and the plants and the fungus and the animals around it. So like that's a great example of harmony in nature. But nature is just mainly harmony, and right down to the math of it all, where we have these leaves and these animals that all display the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio of these fractals over and over and over again. And so and that's a great mathematical kind of harmony that we can see with our senses. But yeah, it's everywhere. We always have the option to either tune into it or out of it.
Something I believe we touched on in a past session, that I think we can always revisit and unpack, is I want to say it's a Buddhist um, method or perspective of wiping the mirror clean, and how that helps you to see reality as objectively as possible, rather than like approaching a situation thinking about all the things that you don't want to happen or all the things that you want it to be. You know what I'm saying? Like just seeing it for what it is. And that helping you live a more authentic, true life for yourself.
So I think what I got from that was kind of trying to remove the expectations of whatever is going on, so that you don't cloud things with your expectations, and you, like you said, you can live a more natural or authentic version of yourself instead of getting in your way. Basically, I think that's what I took from what you just said, and I very much like resonate with that idea. I think that's actually, not only do I resonate with that, I think that's actually one of the keys to success, actually, in various aspects of life, because I think, as I've witnessed this firsthand, when I have various times in my life when I've let go of my expectations, really let go, and then I have a breakthrough and things like happen, like things that I couldn't have seen happening, like maybe where I once had a goal and I had frustrations with it. I let go of it, let go of my expectations, stopped aiming so directly for this thing, and maybe think, okay, I'll come back to it. And I've had these breakthroughs where I realized, oh, it was because I let go of that need, that desire so hard, and then boom, here it is. It was trying to get to me, but I guess I was focused on that state in between, getting to it, because that's a state too, getting to the thing. This is like what the manifestors forget. There's the whole manifestation class that are really involved in actively consciously manifesting. A lot of them, some of them get it, some of them don't, but a lot of them forget the step where when you're in the want phase, that's a phase itself. You got to let go of the want too, to allow the thing to meet you. And that's just part of our daily human game. We play that every day. Every one of us plays it every day, whether it's with the food that we want to eat, or jog that we want to go jog, or a drive that we want to take, or a trip we want to take. Whatever, we play that game every day, and we master it time and time again, and we also kind of let it play with us time and time again. That's what I think is funny about that one in particular.
So aside from expectations, the way I look at it is like, so I know you feel this way too, that we're all a reflection of the one. Like so whenever you show up, it's just like you're going to reflect back whatever energy you're giving out, whatever vibe you're giving out, that's going to bounce right back at you. So if you send someone like a positive, you will most likely get that back, unless their mirror is also not clean. So when I think of like the mirror not being clean, I think of a psychological smudge, if you will, on your like your inner like psyche of like whether it's your prejudice or your preference or your like we're talking about expectations. It's like it's whatever you bring to the table. Let's say you're meeting someone for coffee. It's wherever you bring to the table preemptively that keeps you in your own way and keeps you unable to be in the unlimited possibility of the present tense.
Yeah, it sounds like the smudge could also just like be any really negative aspect of the ego that's getting in the way. It's that's what I'm looking for. Any limiting belief, anything that's blocking the connection between you and whatever else. Like, and it could be anything, a person or anything else. It doesn't have to be a person. But yeah, no, it those smudges. It's an interesting way to think about it in terms of like keeping the mirror clean, because I like that. I do believe we're reflections of source and each other, and like because there's like a collective conscious game also that we exist in, so we also have that over our heads. You projected wherever it is, inside of us, outside of us, everywhere. Yeah, that's the other thing. I do believe, dude, this is older wisdom that we've heard since the dawn itself. Like, nature is a reflection of our collective energy as a species, and probably not just us, but the other species on the planet. And I think that's true, dude. I really do think that that is actually something that we will be able to measure in time, because we're getting pretty advanced with our capabilities in weather anyways. We've got all this stuff floating up in there in this ionosphere, and actually in space, just like collecting all this data. I think eventually we'll be able to measure collective frequencies and weather correlations, and that might take 100 years of data to really understand, but I think it'll be understandable. But yeah, no, that one got me excited because I've been thinking about that a lot lately. And I've had little real-time feedback mechanisms lately where I'll have a thought that I really truly feel strongly about, and then boom, the fucking clouds part and the sun's like, boom, what's up? And it feels like, oh, am I on to something? Like maybe I didn't necessarily figure anything out, but just I'm on that path to getting to whatever there could be to be being revealed. But yeah, no, the weather is us. We are the weather.
The first time I had um not a direct experience. It wasn't the first time I had a direct experience. The first time I had a direct experience in correlation to weather, if you will, I had. It's probably about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Probably I think I did around an eighth, and I was in the park with a lady, and there was like kind of a vibe between us. It was more friends, but there was like mutual attraction, right? And I kid you not, um, it was like kind of like a bunch of fall leaves on the ground, or something, and the leaves like a big gust of wind swept them up, and they did like this. They literally turned into a heart. I kid you not, like actually that, and then this is where it gets really trippy. We walked like 10 feet, and you could like kind of see. There's like a bridge. You kind of see like body of water, but like I started to notice as I put my focus on the clouds, I began to orchestrate them to swell and to distort. Literally, my mind was tapped into them, and now I can look back and be like, "Oh, I wasn't like master of my reality, like God controlling clouds. It was that I was so in the flow that I was in tune with the way that the weather was forming and shifting, and that blew my fucking mind at the time. And I think that's so incredible that there's these little plant reminders that can like rub our nose in the magic of the universe, and that stuck with me, and that like people think like whenever you do like a heavy psychedelic drug that like you're getting fucked up and you're not going to remember anything, but like that shit stays in you, and because it's so revelatory.
The natives know this. The natives never forget this. All across the world, this is part of their heritage, and I think it's part of all of humanity's heritage. They just never let go of it. They never let it be taken from them. Yeah, that they never lost that connection. And I in some other podcast I was listening to, they were just talking about that the native connection to this concept. So I had to say that. So a few years ago, I had a psychedelic experience with like 5 of my friends, and in one of the peak moments, there were 2 of my friends that were doing just what you just described. They were tapped into the weather. It was a blood moon, so it was a beautiful night to be out there. Summer night, blood moon looking orange and red and light, just like beautiful, and picture that tripping. But so they were like tapped into the weather, playing with the sky in a way that only those 2 were tapped into, and they had this shared psychic weather experience that none of us had. So fast forward to 7 years. This was no. Fast forward 5 years. So here I am having my own experience with one of my friends, and just like before I know it, there I am. He's kind of playing with the sky, and he's like, "Wait, did you see that?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, we were that. We are that." Like, and it was just realizing, like, oh, we found this line of consciousness that connects all of us. And yeah, it is. It's totally channeling. That's like a great word for it, because you're tapping into it with your frequency. And so this trip for me was interesting because not only did that happen, but I realized I could do that. And it's like a state of being that I could keep myself in if I stay focused. And so I had a lot of fun with that. And so that's now, since then, it's kind of come and go and manifest in other ways as well. I haven't had it so much with the weather, but I have had it with other things.
Next, I have not playing small.
Did you say not playing small? So that I could take that anywhere. So not playing small and like not having fear and opening up yourself to be free, to be yourself, kind of. It's kind of where my mind just goes with that off the cuff. Not being small and not limiting yourself with limiting beliefs that a lot of us grew up with, and that, like, for a lot of us, that limiting belief structure was part of the cycle of thoughts in our heads that took us time as adults to understand and throw out and get rid of. So not thinking small and underselling yourself that way with those limitations, and not being small in your in the state of who you are. Like, be bold as yourself, right? Like, that's something that I think is important for me, is to be bold as myself and not feel like I have to be small, because why would I put myself in this little tiny space and be uncomfortable for no reason, which I see people do. And I still to this day am like, why do so many people seem to choose that so often? Why are they being so hard on themselves to where they're crunching themselves down and making themselves sad? And I still struggle to understand why that's such a common theme, but hey, maybe I'll learn something about that. Who knows?
Well, okay. So, a few things. I think that some people play small sometimes as a survival mechanism to not stick out, and be a target for being different. I may be projecting some of myself onto that, but I know I've always felt a little unique, we'll put it, so there's not a negative connotation. I've always felt a little unique compared to my peers, if you will. And because of that, I it's taken a really long time, and it's still difficult to like let myself take up space. Like, not like, yes, I am technically a straight white man, so like, yeah, we take up space, blah blah blah, all that rhetoric, but at the same time, like, me as an individual, when I'm in some sort of public setting, it's so easy to try to, even though I look the way I look and act the way I act, like, be myself, it's so easy to try to minimize that and stay reserved and stay introverted so as not to cause waves, and get myself noticed in a way that someone won't appreciate me for. But the reason I wrote this down is because anecdotally, last night I was like the only white person in a group of like 30 people, and I said something, the somehow we got onto the topic of oneness. I mentioned that it's all one, and this woman said to me, what a white thing to say, like, that's so corny. And I was like, well, what in the world? This is an Eastern view that goes back thousands of years. What in the world does my belief and my knowing, like, I'm telling you, it is all one, what in the world does that have to do with my amount of melanin? Like, really, like, yes, you want to like pull that, but like, also, you're trying to make me fit into this box, and this is your first interaction with me ever. Like, I'm not trying to like be all like victimize myself. All I'm saying is, like, I didn't show up here to play small. Like, I came here to be the universe and be expansive and be unconditional love and empower others and hold space and all these wonderful positive things that I think are important. And you want me to play small. You want me to like fit that archetype or that like dynamic of like, yes, I'm the white man in the crowd. Like, no, don't put that onto me, because you don't know the unlayering I've done. You don't know my path and how like trite that sounds out loud, but like it's really fucking true. You do not know me like that.
Well, the joke is on her because she's saying that in a city where there's been a huge, huge wave in the black community of realizing their own spirituality and their own connection with the source, the one that we come from. And it's super empowering. And this goes back into African, um, just their belief in general, if going back millennia. So, from religion to story to story, because every tribe kind of has a different religion, or not religion but relationship with how they practice spirituality. So some would have more of a connection with gods and deities, while other have more of a connection with the earth itself and the planets like the sun and or the stars rather. But so that's just funny because the joke's on her. The black community has been waking up for years, and it's been beautiful for me to see because I've seen my own friends in the black community out of nowhere start getting super spiritual, talking about, it's time we decalcify our pineal glands. That's why I brought that up earlier. It stems from my experience there. But no, it's just funny to me that she would say such a backwards thing, not knowing the reality of what's all around her. And that really drives home just kind of how she's trying to make you out to be some kind of low-key racist with the statement, how she words it. But the reality is that she's out of touch because she doesn't know that, people of melanin are super tapped into this idea. What are you talking about? So that just makes me chuckle because, wow, she's late to this party.
I think the more I say it out loud, I think what really happened with that interaction was I went from A to C. Like maybe she said something vaguely about like the true nature of reality. I don't know how I got on saying it's all one, but I don't try to bring that into conversation unless it's relevant. But I think what happened was she mentioned she's from the East Coast. Now if we go with the mindset of the East Coast, like you got to be tough and guarded and stuff. I don't think she was expecting at 3 a.m. to be drunk outside of a bar and someone get that heavy and that deep that quick. I think she was ready for casual conversation, and some white boy says some vaguely new agey shit, and she went, yeah, I literally caught her off guard. I think is what happened, really, because like she literally like within the same breath was like, it's okay though, I'm 22 and I'm a third white, and I'm like, all right, these are all labels you're putting on you that have nothing to do with me. And then I dissed her. Like I held my ground. I was like, I wasn't aggressive, but I was like no, I'm telling you, like it is all one, and you're not gonna make me go back on that, basically. And she like dipped and then tried to come back, and like she tried to like dap me up, and I was like, nah, I'm good, like we're cool, but I'm good. And then she ended up showing up at the art teacher's, I'll keep him unnamed for this, but the art teacher's friend's spot. Like he lives downtown in a loft, and so that was the after party, and she ends up showing up, and like he said it like within earshot of her when she walked in, so I was literally about to Irish goodbye. I was about to dip because like I couldn't find him. Like I'm not waiting around. It's like 4 a.m. What am I doing here? I'm tired, I'm hungry, blah blah blah. And then she walks through the door as I'm about to walk out, and I'm like, oh, you again? And then like she literally said as like, and I like mocked her. I was like, oh, now you're wearing your denim jacket whenever you were fucking shivering outside holding it. Like I was just roasting her a little bit. And then he said with an earshot of her, like, nah, I don't think she was like really shitting on you. I think she likes you or something like that. But then we sat on opposite sides of the room and didn't say shit to each other. So I think there was a little bit of like tension there. Like maybe I'm reaching, but maybe she found me attractive. Maybe she hated herself for finding a white man attractive. Like I would if I was her.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. That puts a fun little twist on it to look at it from that perspective. Because that's the other thing. You're out kicking it. It's a late night. There's other things in the air too. There's more than what meets the eye with these things that get said. So yeah, who knows?
But yeah, I didn't bring that up just to be petty. I found it, interesting to unpack. And I have two more things. Are you familiar with the app that was created around quarantine times called Randonautica? Tell me what you know. What do you think on it?
Yeah, shout out to Revo. Throw them threes up. this dude, man, I can't say too much about what he did, but he opened up a box on TikTok a while ago. This is like maybe 2 years ago when I learned about it. It could have been 3 or 4 years ago when it happened. Okay, okay, so yeah, it would have been right before or during the pandemic, whatever, right around here. So he put me onto this, what's going on to it, and I followed some of the stories. Basically, people are finding dead bodies. People are finding like money and finding like all sorts of things you're not supposed to find, right? I'm not even going to list it all because we'd be here all day, but the stories are crazy. And I read about a few of them. I like from different sources. I confirmed multiple of these stories were actually real and read about it from like various news sources. Even on some of these stories, they're like super legit. And yeah, dude, that shit blows my mind. Did they have to close the app? Did they stop it? I can't remember if there was at some point there was a talk about it being too dangerous. So I don't know if they stopped it or whatever, but I do know I haven't heard any stories about it lately, so maybe they did. But yeah, that's what I know about it. I just know about some of the crazy stories of the stuff that kids found, even because some of these kids were young and they found like there's one where there's a suitcase full of a body. There's a murder of what they think it was a drug deal gone wrong or whatever, but nobody fucking knows. So I don't know why they make that up unless somebody confessed that I don't know about. So I'm not going to say too much, but that stuff, when I learned about it, blew my mind. I had fun with that.
So because you have a science background, how fascinating is it, like the structure, the framework of the app that like let's say you pick it supposedly picks a random geographical location, but how is that any different than you manifesting this shit by your subconscious setting the intention for what you want to find, and then that's like your consciousness creating the what do you call it, the latitude and longitude, and then you literally are like opening up a fucking treasure chest of like good or bad or neither or both, and you don't know what you're gonna find. But like when I first found out about the app, I was so intrigued, so much so that like I went and like bought a shirt online. You probably see me wear it. It's like a purple shirt with like an owl tilted its head or whatever. Anyways, I never used the app because I was I was less okay. So my meditative practice was steady, was strong, and I was super spiritually centered, and like it's all like one love, God, blah blah blah, all that. And so like I was honestly afraid of the rabbit hole that I would go down. I felt like I would become so untethered with the mystery and the like. You know what I'm saying? Like shit could get weird real quick on that shit, but I find it endlessly like interesting. I would love to do it if I was a more secular person, but I don't think you could be like a logical person and have this like irrational, like stupefying shit being, uh unlocked through your own like quantum mechanic, blah blah blah. I'm going over my head, but what do you think?
Oh, bro, yeah. So let me try to put these in perspective. So one, on that note, I have a story in my life of why I chose not to do something as well, because I didn't want to open that can of worms. And what happened was I was presented with a Ouija board. I was hanging out with my girlfriend at the time, and we got a Ouija board for somebody just gave it to us or dropped it off, and we were thinking about playing with it or whatever. And within a few, like maybe a half hour of like thinking about it and really putting our consciousness and our attention towards it and talking about it, I got a nosebleed, which is something that I like. Maybe it was my third nosebleed in my entire life. Right. So it felt very much like a bad omen. And so I didn't take it too seriously, other than I knew I didn't want to open this can of worms. Like I knew, okay, well, I'm not doing this. I don't think it makes sense for me. And my girlfriend was supportive. She was like, yeah, let's not do this. And we didn't play with it at that time. Eventually we did down the road. Nothing crazy. I don't have any crazy story that I can remember. unless something comes back. But I don't think anything happened. All right, so that's that. That's when I chose not to do that. So, but back to what you were saying before that, with the technology being a part of you randomly finding things. So this ties into the physics of what I've been talking about with intention. We talk about the water and we tell the water we love it. We tell the water we don't like it. We tell the water it's dumb or that it's the smartest water. And we see beautiful crystals versus disharmonious crystals, which don't look appealing. So we see that. And so what I say to this is that even without the water being the medium, we can do this with our technology. We can bring our intention to the technology, and kids can be super specific even. Well, not just kids, but people that are using the app can be super specific in the sense they can be like, well, I want to find a lost kitten. I want to find a skateboard that was abandoned, or a bike that needs some love, like a bike with a flat tire that someone left on the side of the road. People can be specific with these kinds of technology and find the things they're looking for, because that's just kind of how our quantum reality works. And so this is my belief, right? This isn't solid science yet, but I think in time it will be, just like given we'll understand these things. And I don't think we're that far from understanding this, really. I think this stuff's kind of materializing as we speak, like right now.
Well, to follow that line of reasoning, if we're pretty close to figuring it out, then that means we're pretty close to mastering an app like that and just fucking finding shit because we want to. That's fucking wild.
So Chat GPT's taken over the world in the last 2 months. So I haven't messed with it yet. I was about to, and I keep, something happens every time I get ready to do it. I have to go somewhere. But so it's an AI interface. You can have discussion with it. You can ask it to do tasks for you. It can do pretty complex things. Like it can code you a website in a very specific way. And then maybe you are having problems in your coding of your website, and it can help you fix your problems that you weren't able to figure out, because, you know, it can access Google, and I think it can access Google and do these searches and learn, because it's AI. That's what it does. So a lot of the artwork we're seeing, there's been this art trend where people are using the apps to make themselves look cartoony and magnificent and goofy, and that's been Chat GPT. A few people set it to do a few things. Like it's a really simplified version of it. They set it to do things, and then they charged a fee. It's like a $8 or $10 fee, and you get your photo turned into a few Chat GPT things. And people don't know that it's ChatGPT. They go through the company that designed it, because I think you can do that. I think you're allowed to do that. I think you can use it commercially, obviously, if they're doing it like that on such a massive scale. But yeah, you can do an infinite array of things. The universities are having a discussion now in which they're realizing students can just type every paper through AI now. And it can be a great paper because it can, it knows what writers are from the internet, and it's access to data. So there's a conversation now on how they're going to deal with that at universities, but they'll figure out a way. It won't be that difficult. I mean, people don't need to type long papers anyways, really. If you can do the shorter term thing, the short version, there's no reason to make it 10, 20 pages long unless it's something that requires that, such as like a real scientific breakdown of a huge experience or theory or whatever not you have and stuff like that. But most things don't require a 5-page paper, right? There are other ways to teach students. But yeah, so ChatGPT is just proven to be this huge tool, and I think over time we'll understand now that it may not be this thing that is at this point it may not be this thing that's a living consciousness per se. Self-aware is what I'm looking for, but I do think we will understand in time that it is conscious in the fact that it's like another reflection of just like nature. And the weather and these other things are a reflection, but this one now is a new one for us because it's through this technology, and that's very new for us. But the idea of this stuff has been discussed in some of the old worlds, like the Egyptians talked about technology that they had heard of in other civilizations that was like this. So it's not a new concept for humanity, but it is a new concept for our time of species, our timing here as apes.
So even with it not being a new concept, it's still in the modern world. The implications of it is like in every aspect of it is a complete game changer. If we just use the example of term papers, like it's a fucking game. Like there's no like if you can go that around the system can't make you the system has to adapt. So the last thing I want to touch on, and this probably be brief or not, is color or colors.
Colors have been fun for me lately because I've been tripping a lot and like realizing there's these other colors that I forget about. Like I see them from time to time, but they're not like the standard colors because they have a different quality of them. I can't quite put into words, but colors have been fun for me. So I've been trying to remember that, and I haven't been painting much, but I want to. And I want to paint with a lot of color and just have fun. And yeah, that's where colors are in my life right now, because it's been gray lately, like super gray outside, and I've been trying to be colorful. So I have my smart lights, and I've been switching it up a lot lately. I know I'm ready to be colorful in all the aspects, because every night it's been like a new color. I've been flipping from like a really light purple, periwinkle purple, and then going to like orange, and then going to like I have one that's pink and red and deep orange and rotates between those, and I've been playing with colors a lot. So I'm ready for the sun to come out. I guess is what I'm saying.
The reason I wrote this down is I think that color is one of those things that's like a constant in our reality that we get so used to, and it's part of the like becoming numb as you become an adult. Is like first time I really tripped, like I was looking at color which with so much more appreciation, because like color could just as well not be a thing. And like think about how less wonderful our world would be without color, and think about like just the fact that color is a thing, how much it brings to our experience. And like another aspect of that is as a kid, like when you're in your adolescence and your early 20s, like, and I only speak for myself, but I see it all around, like you're so like angsty and discontent, and you think you just gotta wear all black because you can't be vulnerable, and you can't be like, like happy seeming or anything like that, or like any of that. But like, nah, the older I get, the more I just want to like, yeah, a little goes a long way if you're talking about your outfit or whatever. But like, nah, you should throw some color in there because it's beautiful, and especially with painting, that's helping me appreciate color even more so. But just like, color is one of those things that we take for granted until we realize how fucking cool it is that it's even here with us.
Dude, straight up. I remember this the other day. I was over in some neighborhood where there was a nice, beautiful mural. It was probably Cherokee Street. And I just like walked by it, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. Color feels good. And I just walked by, and I was like, it feels really good. So I stopped there, and I like hit the blunt a few times, and I kept pushing. But yeah, no. It does. It brings a whole lot of joy. My friend was telling me about his struggle with the winter because of living in the Pacific Northwest, and how it was such a drag on him with the gray days that just like never ending out there. He said it's at times. And so when he was here, it was hitting him equally hard. And but he does have the hope that he knows like we're right around the corner from some beautiful bright days.